I'm focused on the spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Donald Trump, and he's upset with Congressman Thomas Massie, who takes a principled stance on like the budgets and things like that, but is very firm and definitely not so much a team player. So Trump is pretty upset, went on a bit of a rant, and is like, we're going to primary you. And that didn't work out too well for him before. It worked out well for Massie. So Massie's not flipping out about it. But I just not a lot of people seem to be on Team Massie, who are like some influencers or whatever. So I see some voices speaking out on his behalf, even though they may think that he's wrong on not wanting to do the continuing resolution and keep funding temporarily the budget and all that stuff. So but I got thoughts for sure about the angry tweets. So we'll be talking about that. Also, there is an interesting tweet that someone shared from Elon Musk's son, who doesn't identify as a son, who identifies as a girl, regarding their gender and it being selected through IVF, because they picked whether to have a boy or a girl, and now doesn't identify as a boy, and he believes that his gender was commodified, and it wasn't even really his gender that was commodified. It was his very existence on whether or not he was a boy or a girl. So I think it's pretty interesting. So I want to show that. Also, I thought it was interesting because it reminded me of a joke that I literally just saw on TikTok the other day. So I was like scrolling and looking for it. So I'm a little bit late because I'm like, I just saw this. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, how many TikToks did I watch? Because I was going through my activity center because I didn't like it or anything. So it took me a minute to find it. So anyway, we'll be talking about that and some other things depending on time. Before we jump into everything, and I say my normal spiel, I do want to point out that yesterday's show was blocked by YouTube. I have to appeal it. I'm not sure if it's no, it's not blocked. It says it's ineligible for copyright, for monetization. I can appeal that. They probably won't give it to me. The show from 2 days ago, well, I guess Friday, that show is still blocked. I haven't appealed that yet. So yeah, so just I will appeal it and try to clip it and other stuff, but I don't know. Sometimes it depends what it is, and they can be really picky. Jubilee yesterday we played stuff from Jubilee, like one video, but it was a long portion of a video, and the Love Is Blind stuff got flagged. So I'm not surprised. That's just. But if people are talking about social political commentary and you put that stuff on your show to draw eyeballs, people are going to continue talking about social political commentary outside of your show and on social media, and they're going to post things and they're going to show things from your show, and it's under fair use. Like it's just what it is. Someone could want to clip my show and talk about my commentary that I'm talking about and other stuff. And I do get stuff like notifications, like, hey, someone's using your content. Like, I've made it on other people's content before. Like, people have highlighted different stuff that I said on different reels or whatnot, and uh, and people don't necessarily ask. So you guys are the ones who told me that I was on Brett Cooper's show. And they didn't even say, like, use an @ symbol for, like, this was from Black Tea News. Like, they cut that out of, like, the comment section. So you guys had to notify me, and I was recognizable to some of you out there, but millions of people saw that the video of me talking about Dylan Mulvaney that Brett Cooper commented on, and don't know who I am. So, but anyway, it's the internet, it's social media. I know how it works. And I didn't tell them to take it down. I'm sure they made a lot of money off that one particular video, because I've made a lot of money off of videos that have gone into the millions on shorts and stuff. So, but it's social commentary, so it is what it is. It is what it is. Anyway, thank you guys. I see you guys in comments for joining me. You guys can go to blacktnews.com, check out articles, videos, etc. that I have written. You guys can check out different merch that I have on the side. If you like what I do here, you guys can consider leaving a donation on the website, or getting different merch and stuff. That does help to support. And March is reading month. March is reading month, guys. And when I was a kid, they had the pizza parties and all that kind of stuff, for, like, if you read a certain amount of books and whatnot. So, I like to read, but I got a lot of books out there if you guys are interested. And I thank you to those of you who checked out my stuff and left a nice review on Amazon. I have nonfiction, but mostly fiction. So I encourage you guys to check that out, including March's Reading Month with your little ones to read. I got some good, wholesome books as well, chapter books for your kiddos. Anyway, let's hop to it. So I already got a comment about Massie not seeing the bigger picture. I don't know if Massie necessarily cares about seeing the bigger picture here. I guess the bigger picture to Massie is our debt is explosive, and at some point in time, someone has to do something about it, and we can't keep kicking the can down the road. And we can't keep spending at the absurd levels that are post-COVID. And we need to get lower than what we were pre-COVID, but we at least need to get down to pre-COVID. And so I can understand that. So he's taking a stand because he sees it as continuous bad behavior. Chip Roy was on Daily Wire and explained, like, no, there's things that we're going to cut in the future, and we're budgeting different things, and this will be a good thing. We just need some more time right now, and you can believe them or not believe them about eventually they will do better. There's some people that I follow that are like, I don't expect the Republicans to do anything with the budget. I just want them to stop lying. Stop lying about it. I'm like, oh my gosh. What a view, what an opinion. Just total, like, pessimist about the stuff. Like, they're no good. But you know what? I guess I sort of have that opinion about Trump, and always have. Like, I remember when the Tea Party was the big thing, the Tea Party versus Obama. We need to get our spending under control. And there was a wave that just kind of took over the country, and the Republicans, like, a lot of people came in during the Tea Party time, or there were people who claimed that they were Tea Party and they were going to get things under control. And there are all sorts of things that people claimed that they didn't do. Like, we'll get rid of Obamacare, and we're going to cut this, and we're going to cut that. We're going to budget under control, blah, 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 blah. And, things never materialized quite the way that we wanted to. Not that there weren't good people who came in, but, it's just, you're not a lone person, and people have to cut deals to get certain things passed, and sometimes you eat a crap sandwich. This is the way how things work. But when Donald Trump was the nominee in 2016, I never believed that he was going to be the person that just cut a bunch of stuff, and who wasn't going to spend, like, he cut regulations, and things like that. And they redid the tax code, it was good stuff. And I get it. I like it. But as far as, like, really, really trimming the fat, I'm like, this man pees in golden toilets. Like, that was always my attitude. Like, if he can spend someone else's money, especially on a project that he will think is going to be for the better, then yeah, he's gonna go ahead and he's gonna do that. So I just never expected him to be a fiscal conservative on the matter. So I never had radical expectations about Trump, you know. And I don't now. Maybe you guys do. I just never did. That's not saying that I don't want them to do better and like do something better with the budget. I just knew what I was getting on that front. Now, when I heard Elon Musk and Trump like talking about Doge before like they officially named it Doge or whatever on the campaign trail, talking about Elon coming in and looking at waste, I'm like, oh, you guys know that I got excited about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. It's great. But they've been pushed back against a lot from the courts, from the Democrats crying every day because we have to. They're like, show us your balance sheet. They're like, how dare you? How dare you want to see what we've been spending the money on? How dare you want to know what Stacey Abrams has been spending millions upon millions of dollars on when buying appliances for poor people? Just all kinds of shenanigans. I appreciate the different conversations that have been going on, the things we've been seeing, and some of the cuts that they want to do. Okay. But then there are things like, oh, if we're saving all this money with the cuts with Doge, let's give money back to the people. And a lot of people like the idea. Times are tough, giving money back to the people and cut them some checks. There's a big deficit. Like, that was an idea they were kicking around. I didn't think it was a great idea. At the end of the day, what they're saving on Doge and looking at how we spend money, what it goes to, whether we need it or not, I think those things are so important. And that's something that should continue on, not just through the Trump years, but by the way, other presidents have done the same thing or made such groups to do similar things that were just named differently. So people flipping out about Trump are just hypocritical. They just don't like Trump and that their projects are being cut. I like their mission, but the reality is at some point we do have to cut our spending and we have to get down to pre-COVID levels. I just don't know if they have the will to do it, because Trump wants to spend, and there's important things they have to spend it on, but there's things that he obviously doesn't want to touch, like entitlements. And I get that politically it's a bad move. But that's where a huge chunk of the money goes. And then there's military, but you don't really want to cut military. I think the Pentagon should be able to pass an audit. I think the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems with the government, they say that they need these big budgets, but at the same time, I know for a fact throughout all kinds of different departments, whether it's military or HUD or whatever, if they have a budget, at some point in time, if they're not near spending the money, they have to invent ways to spend the money because they don't want to have a smaller budget the next year. So they have to justify their budgets by just going out and spending money on dumb stuff if need be. They'll invent ways to spend the money. So I don't think that's obviously a good thing because it's not their money. They're confiscating it from all of us so they can, do whatever services and projects and whatnot and pay staff and whatever, but do their pet projects too. But they confiscate the money from us, and they need to be good stewards of our money that we have to give up at gunpoint or risk going to prison or something. They should be good stewards of our money. So I think again, Dozier's great, but we have to find out other ways to deal with our money, right? So when it comes to Massie, he doesn't like this. Let's keep kicking the can down the road and spending large sums of money. And so Massie, some people are saying things like, well, Massie doesn't get things done, or Massie doesn't pass a lot of bills, or Massie. And I've seen some people respond by, why do you think it's a good thing that people are just passing a lot of laws? Like there's already a plethora of laws that we have. Like maybe you need some new laws, but we shouldn't just be nominating and sending people to Congress and Senate to always just be passing a bunch of new garbage, like to pass things for passing sake. So you want to make sure that's not just a quantity issue, but a quality issue of what they're actually getting done. So people are attacking Massie in all kinds of different ways because he's a consistent no vote, but there needs to be some, like, I'm very principled in the things that I believe. Some things I'm just like steadfast, don't want to move on, and it's easy for me to be that way, especially because I'm a commentator and I'm an activist. Right? But sometimes when you are in the Senate and you're in the House and you want to get some things done, you want to stick to your principles, but sometimes you do have to be part of a team and you have to wiggle in some places. And Massie's always a hard no, right? So so while I can respect his principles, and I don't always agree with Massie, he can be an issue sometimes. But Trump voiced some issues with Massie here and said he's going to primary him. So let me go ahead and share my screen and read through this long post here. Okay. Thank you to the House Freedom Caucus for just delivering a big blow to the radical left Democrats and their desire to raise taxes and shut our country down. They hate America and all it stands for. That's why they allow millions of criminals to invade our nation. Sometimes it takes great courage to do the right thing. Congressman Thomas Massie. Which, by the way, again, like other people compromise. Massey is the one who's just like the stickler. You can always depend on him pretty much being a no. And it sucks when the majority is so slim and you need everyone pretty much on board. But you have someone like Chip Roy, who's a pretty solid, conservative, who's, saying this bill right now that we're voting on and voting yes for. This is something that's necessary and it is a win. So just wanted to put it in there because he's talking about the Freedom Caucus and stuff. So Massey's, the one who's just being the stickler here. That's why they allow millions of criminals to invade our nation. Sometimes it takes great courage to do the right thing. Congressman Thomas Massie of beautiful Kentucky is an automatic no vote on just about everything, despite the fact that he has always voted for continuing resolutions in the past. He should be primaried, and I will lead the charge against him. He's just another grandstander who's too much trouble and not worth the fight. He reminds me of Liz Cheney before her historic record-breaking loss. The people of Kentucky won't stand for it. Just watch. Do I have any takers? Anyway, thank you again to the House Freedom Caucus for your very important vote. We need to buy some time in order to make America great again, greater than ever. Unite and win. So, Thomas Massie, they've played this game before with Thomas Massie to try to primary him and get him out because he wasn't obedient to the will of Trump, and it didn't work so well for Trump. And Thomas Massie remained in his seat, and I don't think he's sweating again. I think in the long run, Massie will retain his seat in Kentucky. And, I can understand him being upset. He could, I don't know, send Vance to talk to Massie or Mike Johnson, or, whether that works or not. He could try negotiating more. But the obey or we will primary you, I don't think is good. I don't think it's good. I mean, especially because it's not his attitude about it is sometimes around things that are not worth trying to get out someone really good for, you know. And Trump, for example, like during our midterm elections in Michigan, Trump's whole basis of whether he was going to support you or not was around whether you denied, well, you said that he won the 2020 election and it was stolen. So there are people who are on our main top of the ticket who didn't have any experience, who had issues with fundraising and other things like that, because he didn't really have those connections. And their experience was, hey, I say that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. And he's like, good, you're my person. You're my person. And it didn't work out very well for us. And I feel like Gretchen Whitmer should have been defeated after all the COVID nonsense. This is our midterm in 2022. And she was won by like plus 10. So, he doesn't always pick the best battles. And then when there was all these kind of losses around the country, then he just went to war with like the pro-lifers instead of taking any sort of accountability for it. So he doesn't always pick the best battles. And in this particular case with Massie, there's a lot of good people saying he's wrong, you know, but still don't like Trump harping on him like this. I think, well, there's a tweet that I liked that I want to go ahead and read a bit of, because I this is Trump has done a lot of good things. He'll continue to do a lot of good things, but the thing that I don't like, in the past and what he's apparently doing now, is that they fall in line or get left behind, or we're coming at you, submit or else. And I can understand the need for unity. You can negotiate and do what's best for the country and your party and the constituents and all that stuff. But if you can't get him there, the people of Kentucky still are fond of him and expending more political capital to get rid of him when you already played this game before and he was successful. It's just not a good look. I don't think so. Trump 2.0 came out the gate strong, but unfortunately he's now lapsing into all of his old vices, expending finite political capital, waging war against conservative Republicans, as well as non-hostile countries like Canada and Mexico, pointlessly kneecapping an already fragile U.S. economy, all of which offers Democrats an opportunity to simply sit back and enjoy the show. He needs to recall why Americans elected him, downsizing the federal government and reversing Biden's inflation crisis, restoring law and order, ending the DEIfication of America, ushering in an era of peace via a humbler U.S. foreign policy, unleashing American energy. I don't know about the humbler U.S. foreign policy. I wouldn't use the word humbler. That's not why I voted for him, but like, you can vote for peace, but I think you want I don't know, kind of America to be the bully that you don't want to have to fight. Like, I think that's good. I wouldn't use the word humble. Maybe y'all would. I just wouldn't. Until he accomplishes these objectives, his handlers need to keep him focused on the actual bad actors obstructing his agenda: the far left, Soros DAs, the WHO, the UN, the World Bank, the deep state, etc. Every day, Trump focuses on primarying people like Thomas Massie. The deep state saboteurs who derailed his first administration are able to continue scheming against him, and that's true. There's a lot of saboteurs. It's not like Massie's like I mean, he compared him to Liz Cheney. They're not remotely the same. They're not remotely the same. And Liz was especially distracting because she was in like Republican leadership and still just making unnecessary drama. Like if you don't like Trump, that's whatever, but you're in leadership and you're just drawing negative attention. You're not doing what's good for the whole here. So downsizing federal government, Doge, that's great, but they do need to find a way to keep downsizing. And he's been restoring like law and order and like ending DEI, and they've been fighting really hard on that. He's very good on that. Again, I don't agree with the humbler thing, but there is some instability with the economy with the tariffs here one day, not this day, going into effect, maybe not going to effect, and oh, there's no negotiation to be had, and like, oh, maybe we're gonna lean back, and that's not good for the market. It definitely hasn't been good for the stocks, but it's not good for the market. It breeds, folks who are unsure. I'm already kind of iffy about the tariffs. I'm not too fond of them. But hopefully, I don't know, it'll back off a little bit. But something that did happen the other day, Scott Bensent or Besnet, who's the Secretary of the Treasury, he was asked about the tariffs and the effects that they could have as far as raising prices. And then he's like, well, it's going to be offset. I'm like paraphrasing by, is it really going to be an additional tax to the American taxpayer if you're getting things like no tax on tips and you're getting no tax on overtime and things like that. And so someone that I follow retweeted it, and they're like, I'm salary, so I don't get I don't get the overtime thing, and I'm not paid through tips. So those things, people can like them, but I'm not affected by that at all. So yes, when those costs are passed on to me, I will feel it, and the things that he's saying are the benefit, they'll benefit other Americans, but they're not going to benefit all of them. And I like the idea of no tax on overtime and I can understand why people would like no tax on tips. People who are affected by that are generally going to really like that. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, people are just going to ask, like, well, why should we be taxing revenue like that anyway? Like other people who, I'll be taxing their income and stuff. If people go to work and they don't have like tips or whatever, they don't want their income taxed, just like the person who gets their income through tips doesn't want that stuff to be taxed either. So I know Trump got the idea because he was in Las Vegas and there was a waitress talking about how she doesn't like her taxes on her tips, and he's like, oh, no tax on tips. But everybody feels that way. Everybody feels that way. So I don't know. I think Massie should play ball some more. I just don't but there's people who disagree with Thomas Massie who don't like Trump's like, let's go in primary, we're going to get you, and there's just so many other things. Like maybe there's a way to find some kind of you have to, when every vote matters, you have to you want people to get in line, but at the same time you have to compromise with a lot of different people. So I just think there's other kind of ways to finesse him. And I don't think Trump is going to probably win that primary battle. Just announcing get rid of Massie. I just don't think that's going to work out for him. So I and in general, I just don't like the attitude. Like I can understand the head of the country, been the head of the party for a long time now, at least sort of the figurehead. And you do expect everyone to fall in line, and people are like, unity, 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 or else. Unity or we'll break your legs. is kind of the vibe from some people I'm seeing online. And well, let's, I guess, put Thomas Massie aside. When there were conversations about Trump's cabinet, and there were some people who were good and some people who I didn't think were great, and some people who got confirmed who I'm not really happy about. The labor secretary, whatever, got confirmed the other day. I definitely didn't want her, but then it was a bipartisan vote because the Democrats, of course, loved her. And people are concerned about right to work and other things like that. But the unions are thrilled. So people had this argument like, well, Trump, he won, so he has a right to have everyone that he wants appointed or whatever. Well, everybody who's in the Senate to help advise and consent were also, voted in by their constituents, and they have a say in who goes forward. And when it comes to budgets and other things like that, everybody has a role to play. They represent the people put them there. And there's, 3 co-equal branches of government, and folks got to work together. But it's not just my way or the highway. And Trump isn't always right. There were things in his first term that he announced, like he take the guns and due process later. You guys fond of that? You guys fond of that philosophy? If everybody just jumped behind him and said, "Yep, that's the new Republican position. Take the guns and due process later." Would that be the right call? No. Like sometimes you got to push back against him because he's not always correct. He's not always right. I think like NRA folks or whatever maybe had a conversation with him or whatnot. I don't know. But some positions he's backed off on. Some things he did, like the bump stock ban, that actually got reversed by the Supreme Court because it was unconstitutional, but the man's not always right. Now, a lot of times he might say something, and I learned not to panic because I'm like, he's a reasonable man. Someone will talk to him and he will come around. And a lot of times that happened. But there still need to be reasonable people. Put Massie aside. I think Massie probably needs to play ball some more on this because you got to have some kind of alternative plan sometimes. So let's put him aside. I'm just like a general thing about Trump. There needs to be some people who are willing to say, no, we can't just all agree. We need to persuade you because you're not correct on this. And he's just not right. He's not automatically right because he's the president. He's not automatically right because he's the head of the party. There needs to be some liberty for people to push back on him. And the people watching from the outside need to allow folks to have these disagreements sometimes and know that they can have them and they're not automatically going to be ousted if they don't just parrot a bunch of talking points or just rubber stamp everything that he says, everyone that he wants appointed or whatever. Everybody has a duty to do right by their constituents and the American people. So I guess that's just my spiel. The last thing I'll say before moving on is that when there are folks concerned about whether or not who are on the fence because Trump was broke with some core things and they were concerned about what he would do in the future, like particularly, let's say, the abortion issue or something. And folks are like, I don't know if I could support him. And they're like, well, what about the Democrats? You don't want them to win. Excuse me, because they're just as bad or worse on certain issues. And you, of course. And the concern would be if you reward Trump's bad behavior on the things that are contrary to what we want done as conservatives or whatever, and he the concern is that he will start pushing Republicans in the wrong direction and will permanently change the party, and that they will not push back and everyone will just fall in line with where he wants to go. And so that was a real concern with folks who consider, like, not necessarily voting for Democrats, but like withholding their vote. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of those people came around and were like, "Nah, the Democrats are too crazy. Like, we'll just deal with whatever we have to deal with." But it is still like a concern, though. Is everyone just going to continuously fall in line with Trump, or else are they going to be too scared to push back? Like, I think there's some issues with the tariffs and stuff. There's some people going around saying we're already in a in another depression. We're not in a depression. And if we, and like Don Lemon did a video about that, like, we're in he said we're in a recession. He said we're in a recession. If we're in a recession, that means the economy that they were touting about when Biden was president was trash, because you need 2 consecutive quarters of like negative growth. Okay. So if if the economy was good under Biden, it's not suddenly recession time because Trump has been in office for like a little over a month or 2 months or whatever. That's not how it works. So there's a lot of people exaggerating about what's being done or what's going on right now. But like, I think Mr. Our Treasury Secretary, I'm like, well, he seems like a really smart guy. I'm sure he'll, like, they're having conversations, but he goes on TV and he's like, yeah, but there's no tax on tips. That's not what I want to hear. That's not what I want to hear. And maybe he's just saying one thing on the TV and having different conversations behind the scenes with Trump, but they got to rein back some of this stuff. I think I could be wrong. People have to remember, when the Democrats are in power, they shove all their programs. We need to have that philosophy. There's a lot of people who want a lot of things done, and I think when Obama was president, do you guys remember Republicans? They said we're the party of no, and some people be frustrated with that. I'm like, no, we should say no to a lot of dumb things. I don't think we necessarily need to have a lot of projects. I think if we just block a lot of dumb things from happening, that'll be good enough. But I mean, one thing that they absolutely need to do is get the budget under control. That's something that doesn't change. Like, that's their job. They handle the purse strings. So the Democrats they are unified, and they do push their crap. You're right about that. They are very unified. And they are, it's funny how they'll say we're a cult, but I'm like, they are so lockstep with the crazy stuff that they do, that they push. Like, we're a lot more independent with our thoughts, and so they can, when they put their minds to it, they can really push a lot of stuff down, and they're more comfortable with doing radical things very quickly. We don't like to make big jumps, big leaps like that, So yeah, when they have the reins, they get a lot of stuff done, for sure. We're just trying to show people the books. and they're flipping out. They're flipping out. So I think Trump has bigger enemies: deep state, obstructionists, crazy judges, employees doing a malicious compliance. There's all kinds of folks who I think are bigger fish to fry than Massie. I don't think he needs to expend resources to just go after Massie. But they were talking about, like, even Elon, like, when if certain people didn't vote for Trump's picks, they're like, we're going to make sure that they're primaried and get them out if they don't vote for RFK Jr., who was a Democrat, who called Kamala Harris a team, or tried to, right before he made a deal with Donald Trump, and is only the health secretary because Donald Trump is paying back a favor or whatever for him, for Trump. Like, it's very clearly a, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of situation. I think. So it's just funny what people were willing to go to war over. And they say, get in line or else. There has to be room for disagreement. Like, I know Democrats benefit from the uniform stuff, but Trump is not principled. There's things about him that you can, like, he doesn't like the idea of getting ripped off, for example. He wants, he's very much about his ego, but that could be very bad, but that could be very good. Like, he wants to be the best president. He wants people to believe that he is. So he obviously wants America to succeed, right? That's going to drive him to want America to be prosperous and strong and healthy and all kinds of different things. So his ego about, himself, and his ego toward the country can lead to a very positive direction, but he's also petty. So there's good things about him, and there's bad things about him, but he's definitely not right all the time. And there's been some big things that I think he's been wrong about. I'll repeat again, take the guns and due process later. If you guys remember that happened last time when he was president, came out his mouth. I think it was after a mass shooting, and Pam Bondi, maybe it was it Sandy Hook? No. It can't have been Sandy. It was a what I think it was the Florida Parkland. I'm pretty sure it's Parkland. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Stanley was long. It couldn't have been that. It was. I think it was after Parkland, maybe, when he said that, because Pam Bondi was there, and I think in the Oval Office too, and she was like touting red flag laws, and that's one reason why some people didn't want her to be the Attorney General. Though I think she's a upgrade from his first choice, but that obviously didn't happen. But that's what he said. I'm sure people talked to him, had a conversation, and didn't go that route. So he's just not always right. And he doesn't have the same kind of convictions that you and I might have about different positions on, like, abortion or the Second Amendment and other things like that. Like, he might have like surface level understanding of things are good or bad, but is reactionary and is willing to make a lot of different compromises. But he'll listen a lot of the times. Not all the time. But there just has to be room for disagreement, okay? That's just what I'm saying. Someone said we can't capitulate to Trump on everything. He needs to be checked. That's just my thing, my little spiel, and we can move on. Now this topic might be a little spicy for you guys. So there's some stuff from The View I might want to talk about too, but I saw a tweet about Elon Musk's son. His son, who is no longer, in his view, a boy. And Elon talks about his son and the woke mind virus and how it robbed him of a son, and that he has made woke mind virus his enemy, which I think is good. I think it's terrible what social contagion has done to a lot of kids, and not just kids, like young adults have fallen victim to this. And at the time, Elon, I think he had to sign off on like the transition stuff too, but they would tell parents like, hey, they're going to unalive themselves if you don't go along with it. And so he went along with it, but he knows that it's like a terrible thing and stuff now too. So I thought this was an interesting tweet here, or I think it's probably a tweet. My assigned sex at birth was a commodity that was bought and paid for. So when I was feminine as a child and then turned out to be transgender, I was going against the product that was sold. That expectation of masculinity that I had to rebel against all my life was a monetary transaction, a monetary transaction, a monetary transaction. How the bleep is this legal? So he was conceived through IVF. So this comment was shared by Katie Faust. She's a founder of Them Before Us, and she's, pro-life, but she's doesn't like IVF and other things like that. But she's very much like children have basic natural rights that we need to adhere and respect. But she said Elon Musk's son voices what many IVF kids feel like they were designed and commodified. 75% of fertility clinics offer genetic screening, 73% offer sex selection. Some screen for eye color. 90% of IVF embryos are undesirable and thus destroyed. And she said, how is this legal? Indeed. So I don't think, I guess I have met IVF kids. I haven't had I think most of them were probably kids. So I haven't, that I don't know on a deep level. So I haven't had any, I don't have any anecdotal evidence to corroborate whether this is a repeated feeling that a lot of IVF kids have or not. But what's interesting about Elon's son, though, is that he says that his gender was a monetary transaction. But it wasn't actually his gender that was a monetary transaction. It was his life. Like, what he was selected because he was a boy. People can, in some countries, they don't let you pick whether it's there's other countries that do IVF that are way more regulated than the United States. We're very much like the wild, wild west of it. And so I want to say it's Canada that I know that doesn't let you screen like sex pick via sex selection. But you can in the United States of America. It might not be Canada, but I'm pretty sure in Canada you can't do it. But there's a lot more regulations in other places. So if you want a boy, you want a girl, you can pick whether you have a boy or girl. So he wouldn't exist if there was a girl, and they apparently very much wanted a boy. And now he's rejected. I mean, you can't shed your skin and not be a boy anymore. He'll always be a boy, but he just rejects that identity that was expected and frankly paid for. And interestingly enough, I just saw a joke that had this sentiment that I guess I wanted to share, because it was I just saw this a little while ago, and then this comment popped up. So it was by Andrew Schultz. Andrew Schultz has been open about having issues with him and his wife and fertility. And my older sister, listens to the Flagrant podcast quite often. I've never even sat through a whole thing. Sometimes I see their clips, and sometimes I see clips of him talking to Charlemagne. Andrew Schultz ended up voting for Trump and stuff. So sometimes it's funny him trying to school Charlemagne, or just sharing different thoughts, and Charlemagne from the Breakfast Club just being frustrated. But Andrew Schultz is pro-choice. But he said, my sister told me that he said that intellectually it is hard for him to grasp people being pro-choice and pro-abortion when he himself struggled so much and wanted a child. and people just take it for granted, and then they go ahead and, kill a child. But he still supports a woman's right to choose. But I wanted to play this clip of his. So give me 1 second while I get that together. Gotta switch over to this TikTok screen. Like, I know this is a really touchy subject. Let me refresh that.
There are some advantages with IVF because you fertilize the eggs outside the body. You know what gender the embryo is before you implant it. So technically you could choose the gender of your baby. I told my wife, I was like, listen, if you want to choose the gender, we can choose the gender. Okay. I'm just letting you know now, whatever gender we choose is going to stay that one. They're not coming back here 15 years later. I identify as, I got paperwork. I don't give a fuck. I spent 30 grand on a boy. I'm getting a fucking boy. You want to be a girl? You owe me 30 grand. I raised you better than that. You're not going to steal from me. I'll let you buy your freedom for 30 grand. You better go out there and get a fucking job. That's what you better do. I recommend getting a job as a man because women make 25% less. But listen, this is the life you're signing up for. I hope you're ready.
Yeah, so I don't know if that special is coming out on Netflix or if it's already out or whatever. The wage gap joke was funny, but because I mean, the wage gap, it doesn't exist for one, but if it did exist, why would people, if you could get away paying women less, why would you hire men? Especially women could do the job just as well or better. Why would you hire men if you can get away with just paying them less? So there's that. And then if there's these disadvantages to being a woman, why are these men trying to identify as women and then be subjected under the patriarchy? Just questions worth asking. So it was a good joke. But I don't know if they ultimately did choose a gender or they, randomized it or whatever. But again, I just thought it was interesting with Elon's son, and seeing that post afterwards, and this sort of, I guess, psychological effect that it can have, knowing that was so important, that your parents literally paid to make sure that you wouldn't be a girl or that you wouldn't be a boy, I saw a video. I guess it's funny just overall, just how people are so invested in having a boy or a girl anyway. There was a video that was posted the other day of a gender reveal, and the wife kind of started crying a little bit when it was a boy, and the husband started hugging her, and they retweeted and said, if you're upset about the gender of your child, like one way or another, then you probably shouldn't have kids. I don't know if that was like totally fair. I think it would, I don't know. Boys and girls are different, and they can bring their different challenges for sure. And, and men and women can relate to each other in different kinds of ways. Like, I can understand his father wanting a son, but it's beautiful also to be a girl dad. But I can tell you, when they figured out my sex, my dad, and my brother, I know my brother cried and my dad was upset too. But he only had one son, and he ended up having 6 girls. But you know what? I was the middle child, so I don't even know why they were that distraught already by then, because there's only 2 other girls. So, I mean, like, he continued being outnumbered, but it wasn't even as bad as it was about to get. So He could have at least waited to another 2 girls to really be crying about being that outnumbered. But I don't know. I can understand people having just like kind of natural inclinations to like wanting a boy or wanting a girl, and thinking about different difficulties. Because if you have a girl and you have a boy, or you have a couple, you kind of get a sense of which one is kind of easier to handle at which different point of times in life. They just kind of are different. But I just thought it was fascinating, the different psychological effects of that Elon Musk's son has, and I wonder how deep that is with people who start to kind of dwell on that. I think it's added on to it because this person is confused about their gender identity. But again, it's not that they commodified their gender. It was them as a person altogether, because if he wasn't a boy, I guess he probably wouldn't have been picked. So I don't know. I think there's a lot more kind of ethical questions we need to ask about what we do, and I'm not saying there's like a totally unethical way. Caddy Foss would argue there's no ethical way, I think, to probably do IVF, but even the ways that she might suggest, IVF companies probably wouldn't be willing to do, like just fertilize when you're ready to basically implant, and only do like as many years you're willing to implant. That would just make the cost astronomical, and the companies probably wouldn't be willing to do it, and a lot of clinics and stuff will close down. So but even I don't really think we should probably have the sex selection available like that. I know I had a friend who worked in the IVF industry back in the day, and he said that there would be, in some countries they do like IVF, and they're like Muslim countries or whatever, and they'd have different embryos, and they could have like perfect girl embryos, just absolutely stunning, genetically great, but they'd be willing to take the inferior like male embryo because they just didn't want girls. So it's kind of sad. Kind of sad. So yeah, just wanted to I thought it was interesting, just kind of thinking out loud with that a bit. Moving on, I do want to, people are talking about this clip with Alyssa Slotkin on The View. Alyssa Slotkin is a senator from my state. She beat out Mike Rogers, who might run again because we have another Senate seat available in the upcoming midterm election, because Gary Peters is retiring for what reason. I don't know. I don't know if that's been revealed as of yet, because he's not an old man and hasn't been there that long. So it's always strange when people step down. So I don't know if it was medical or personal, or maybe the reason's out there. I just haven't seen it yet. But she's our, unfortunately, Democrat senator, and she did the response to the unit address, and they're trying to paint her as the normie. So she's making rounds on TV a lot, and I'm not totally surprised to see that she was on The View, but let's go ahead and look at these comments.
Right. I think there's a feeling in the country, and I often say this, we're about to turn 250 years old. Right? We're still pretty young for a country. These are our like our angry teenage years, right? We are going through this push and pull where we're happy, we're sad, we want this, we want that. And what do you do when you have a teenager who's threatening themselves and others? You just try to get them through this period alive so that their brain can fully form and come back to kind of what
Are
a
you
country.
talking about Trump?
No, I'm talking about our country. We're pendulum swinging. We're pendulum swinging. And so for me, I think that I don't think there's a single American who feels like this is normal.
Okay. So we all just picked Trump because we're going through our silly teenage years. We're affirming that boys cannot become girls and girls cannot become boys because we're going through a phase of teenage rebellion, our ignorant teenage rebellious years. So somebody pointed out, like, it's funny how they'll say stuff like this, but they don't take that energy, like, oh, your brain isn't fully developed when it comes to children and transitioning. And she's trying to make it seem like she's normal, but she was out there reading, I Am Jazz and supporting the trans agenda. And there was a video, the talking point, it was like the talking points have gone out. And let me see if I can find it real quick. But it was like 3 different Democrats saying the same thing about, like, oh, it's a local issue. Oh, it's a local issue. Oh, it's a local issue. Here we go.
But for me, it's like, let the local community figure this out, right? In Michigan, we have a process in place where if someone who's born a boy wants to play in women's sports, you have to get a waiver. We've had it happen 2 times.
That we want to make sure that these decisions are made by the communities, by the schools and others that are the ones closest to us and understand. What we know is that we're talking about a handful of people, a handful of athletes.
Every young person, and I want those sports to be fair. I want those sports to be safe. And I have confidence that local schools and local communities can make those decisions without the federal government making them for them.
Now, these are Democrats, y'all. These are Democrats. In what world are Democrats small government people? In what world? In what flipping world are these people small government? Just, it needs to be as local as possible. In what world? And when you had like the NCAA going before Congress and stuff saying, oh, well, we need guidance and we'll follow the law, but we need guidance about what to do. Okay, so Trump did guidance. And by the way, they tried to like skirt around like the guidances and the executive orders to be like, oh, well, you need a birth certificate or whatever. Like, okay, well, you can get your documents changed. You just need to man up and just say that men can't compete with women and stick by that. So Alyssa Slotkin here, Miss I Am Jazz, Alyssa Slotkin, spreading the transgender ideology propaganda, wants to appear normal, and she skirted in, by the way, during our midterms in 2018. Yeah, 2018, coming in like, oh, I'm this normal, moderate kind of person. I'm a very friendly white brunette. Vote for me. It was like just a bunch of them, just like copy paste. And she's out here now saying, oh, in Michigan, you just need a waiver. It's only happened 2 times. Well, maybe 2 times that you're kind of aware of, that you're paying attention to. But let's just say it was 2. Why does such a procedure like exist? That a boy can play at a girl's sports if they get a waiver. Who are they getting the waiver from? Like, who's signing it? Is it just what about do all the girls that they have to compete with, do they have to sign it? What about all their parents? Do they get to sign the waiver to say it's okay? Did you ask all of the other teams that the boy will have to be competing against, and all of the girls on all those other teams, and all of those parents? What about all the if this boy starts breaking records, did you get everyone who's ever competed and it would be on the record list? Are they okay with a boy coming in and just dominating their records? Like, who gets to decide this? It's not just like a 2-person, 2 trans, a handful of trans people doing a thing. Everyone who's interacting is being affected by this. It's not just an issue of one person. They're competing against a lot of different folks. They're on teams with a lot of different folks. So stop minimizing this issue. If it's not a big deal, just tell the trans people they can't compete. Just tell them they can't compete. It's that simple. By the way, Dylan Mulvaney was on The View the other day too. I don't know if I have one of those clips saved. Let me see if I can find it real quick. He was on The View that got it. And Whoopi said some dumb stuff.
Last week, California Governor Gavin Newsom said that he thinks that trans athletes competing in girls and women's sports was deeply unfair. Now, I'll tell you what I think, too. Yeah.
The last time I played a sport, I was 6 years old, and I was on a soccer team, but I assigned myself as the nurse. So I sat with the Band-Aid. But a dear friend of mine, Skylar, he is a trans athlete. His handle's Pink Manta Ray. That's someone who I really look to for guidance. And I think that is what's tricky is like now stepping in this identity. I'm still like a baby trans. You know, I've only 3 years in. Tomorrow's my anniversary.
Your friend went your friend went from female to male and is competing with other males.
Correct.
No.
Yes.
Her friend.
Her friend went from female to male and is competing with other
So
males.
Gavin doesn't have a problem with that.
Well, I think part of the problem that the trans community is facing, and it's the same problem that women face, is if you don't know anything about our bodies, you don't know how it works. So you clearly say, these men are men, you know, competing against women. You're assuming that the women are weak and just can't. Athletes, they know what they're doing. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue. The same for me as when people say, oh, you know, I don't know how I feel about you. You do. God doesn't make mistakes.
No.
And the challenge is not to the trans people, it's to the people who are not trans. That's what God is looking to see, how you treat people.
Yeah.
That's what is happening. So I was just curious as to
there's so much to unpack there. I probably should have waited to play this tomorrow. First thought, Dylan said that he hasn't played sports since he was a kid and he opted to just blow a whistle. Okay. That reminded me that he once did a sponsorship deal with Nike. And that caused a bit of a stir. He's promoting different clothing in April 2023. There's an Instagram photo that he posted wearing Nike's Zenvi leggings and Alante bra. And was just doing like stupid kind of workout stuff with it. And so just to reiterate that Nike did a brand partnership with, there's supposed to be women's clothing, and they paid a man to do it. I understand he has a very big platform, but he's still a dude. A lot of people found it to be, you know, disrespectful. And he's definitely not the athlete type, but they did what they did. Okay. So just wanted to revisit that for a second. Whoopi Goldberg acting stupid, pretending like she's unaware that there are differences between boys and girls is just bizarre. It's just bizarre. We've had these conversations many times. I don't love the idea that men are stronger and faster and they're tall, they're bigger. The women, they have longer wingspan, and there's just a lot of advantages that they have. And women can have other advantages over other women as well. And men can have different advantages over different men. Sure. But the difference between men and women when it comes to sports is incredible. And Riley Gaines, why do they have Dylan Mulvaney on the show talking about this? Invite Riley Gaines to The View, please. Please invite Riley Gaines to The View, because they talk about this issue a lot. So why not invite someone who was affected by this and who's been advocating this for a long time for women's rights, and you have the guts to sit there and tell her that she's wrong to fight for her sports, to fight for her profession, and to fight for other young girls, and that she's exaggerating, and that she's just playing weak. No, weak is sitting down and shutting up and pretending like the emperor has freaking clothes on. That's weakness. Standing up and saying, no, that's a boy. That's a boy. That's taken a lot of strength. And it shouldn't have had to. But people like Whoopi have made it hard. And as Alyssa Slotkin said in the other clip, the pendulum has swung, but it's back to common sense. We were in a stupid phase, and it was the Biden administration time. Okay. That was the stupid phase. Okay. And now we have some course correction. And people cannot like Donald Trump. And, I criticized him at the beginning for a while. People cannot like him, but they don't like people who govern their state and are more serious statesmen than Trump. Like for DeSantis for a reason, for an example, I mean, DeSantis did the parental rights and education bill, and they went around lying about that forever, calling it the don't say gay bill and flipping out. So they're just always going to treat Republicans unfairly, even though they say some really darn common sense stuff. Well, Trump is our reaction because you guys don't want normal. She's saying that we know this isn't normal. We know all this stuff isn't normal. That's what Alyssa Slotkin was saying. You guys weren't normal. And maybe he's not what we view normally as normal, but apparently we needed our own crazy to fight your crazy. And our crazy is better than your crazy. Okay? Our crazy is safer than your crazy. He could have lost if y'all had any kind of common sense. He could have definitely lost if y'all weren't psychotic. Okay? But just saying that, hey, it's unfair to have a dude play against a woman. There's a big strength difference and et cetera, et cetera. That's not going, oh, women are but it's incredible when they want to pick and choose when a woman is weak or when a woman is strong and what makes her weak versus what makes her strong. Because Whoopi is a very powerful advocate for abortion. Like, again and again, she's had some herself. But saying, oh, I can't make it if I don't unalive that child. You guys don't think that's weakness. You think that's empowering. But a woman saying, I would like women's sports to be women's sports. That's, oh my gosh, wilting flower. You think Riley Gaines like a wilting flower? They're just all playing stupid. Now, Dylan's friend, who is a female who's identifying as a male playing in sports, Sonny asked if Gavin Newsom had an issue with that. Like, Gavin acknowledges that it's unfair for a man to compete against a woman. I don't think that means that Gavin Newsom is going to make sure that that doesn't happen. So it's amazing how angry these people are at Gavin Newsom when the reality is he's still just as crazy as they are. Or I guess he knows that it's crazy, but he's just going to continue going along with it. And maybe that makes him worse. I don't know. It's all bad. And if they were honest, I think they would know that it is absolutely crazy. And it is unfair. But it's, I think once you start like doing all that stuff to your body, you should just you ruin your career. I think you can play amateur stuff. If your friends want to play with you, you could play with your friends in the backyard or something. I think that should pretty much be done with your sports thing. But I think a girl wanting to compete with guys is less of an issue than guys wanting to compete with girls. So the issue of fairness isn't quite the same or whatever. So I guess I'm saying I'm more okay with that than men competing with women. But I really feel like your options are on the table. If you're going to start Frankensteining your body, there's some things that you're going to have to give up in life, and no one is entitled to treat you like a boy, treat you like a woman, whatever. Anyway, so RC said we want them to stay crazy so we can win. I don't feel that way. I would rather people be less crazy so we don't have to worry about the world, going into utter chaos if we lose. Like, it sucks to lose, but I don't want to feel like, it's near the end of the world or something because we didn't win an election. I would rather people be honest and not insane, and that we just, I don't know, disagree on like minimal tax differences or something than whether a boy can become a girl. Like, so I'd rather they not be crazy. I'd rather they not, because I live in a Democrat area, and that's not changing anytime soon. And I'd rather people get it together and not have to live with the consequences of just madness. Anyway, that's the show for today. That's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed some of the rants. There are other rants, but we're out of time. Please go to blackteeners.com, check out different content, the website, articles, videos, etc. Like what I do, please consider leaving a donation to the website because it does cost a stream. We run the site, all the good stuff. So you guys get support. Very much do appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch that we have on the website, like this. That's a fall, mug, the pumpkin season. Someone asked me to make like a different one. I'll have to. I haven't done it yet, obviously, but I'll let you guys know when I do. But there's other things that you guys can check out on the site. So guys, go ahead and do that. And again, March is reading month, so I encourage you guys to check out some of my books. There's a link in the description of watching on Facebook or YouTube that'll take you to an Amazon page. So thank you very much for joining me today. Oh, one thing I am going to do, I am going to change my intro. I'm not going to change the music, but I have to find the original file because I don't want to have to remake the whole thing from scratch. But I'm just probably going to switch out some of the images. There's some folks on there I'd rather not be there anymore. And there's some other cool things that I've done since then that I think I'd rather like put in there. So I like to find the original file and just swap out some stuff, but I have no idea where it is on the computer. So hopefully maybe I'll have that done by tomorrow. I don't know. If I can find the original file, maybe it'll be done by tomorrow. It was pretty complicated filter, so the template or whatever. So it takes a long time to render, but as soon as I get a new Trump mug, you're gonna buy it, huh? Well, I'll have to. Is there a theme? Is there like just a theme, kind of like the pumpkin spice one? Like, what are you kind of looking in the mug? Could it just be like a chibi Trump one that says, I don't know, like I don't know, just something related to him being the summer, maybe? Could it just be like a general one, like 45, 47? Or I don't know. We'll brainstorm together. 4th of July. You want to I guess it could just be patriotic. If it's just patriotic, then it would feel like it was a summary, like fireworks and flags and something like that. I don't know. I'll figure it out. God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.